Hello everyone, I am Dr. Mayank Pratap, Assistant Professor Faculty of Law from Banaras Hindu University, and we are here with the Understanding Competition Law Theory and Practice course. Now you all are welcome on this session, that is second lecture of this first week, where we will discuss the fair and unfair competitive practices. So dear learner, we have already started with this module, and this is the second lecture of the first week with the objective to understand the meaning of fair and unfair competitive practices which is prevalent in market and the legal provision related to these practices. Dear learner, what we have started with the last lecture, that the competition, if for the sake of the understanding, if we see the previous lecture, what we have already discussed with previous lecture, in lecture number 1 of module 1 of this particular week 1, the meaning of competition, what we have already discussed, the types of competition, the competition policy, and why competition policy needed. And in first lecture, we have discussed with meaning of competition. Competition are several meaning, but if the general meaning, if we take, this is generally where two or more than two person entity or multiple firm or the firms compete with each other, or you can say where the two or more than two rivals are competing to take superiority or to achieve some common goal against each other, that is like a competition. Sometimes you can say the competition is a situation where two or more than two persons, firm or entities or organization compete or fight with each other to strive or to superiority or for the purpose of gaining something or to achieve something in terms of what the strategy or what is the event or what are the occasion. In previous lecture, we have already discussed what are the types of competition, because competition is a general term, and in the aspect of or with the perspective of the market law or economy law or competition law, competition generally refers where multiple firms strive or fight with each other, or rivals, that means where multiple firms are present and they are rivalry and they have to achieve something, and the achievement with the major object of achievement is to expand their market or to attract the customers or consumer. So for the purpose of expanding their market or to attract the customer or consumer, when person comes and take fight, and fight does not means the fight with violence, fight means fight in terms of price, in terms of sale, in terms of market and other market competition. Their intention is just to how to attract the consumer or customer for the product what they are offering or for the services what they are offering and expand their market. And we have already discussed the general meaning of competition law in previous lecture and why the competition policy is needed. We will have the discussion over the meaning of competition policy in another lecture, what we have already discussed in a very narrow term just for the sake of understanding. So with this, if we start with today's lecture with the followed by the meaning of competition and types of competition, why competition is important. What we have already discussed, what is the meaning of competition and what is the basic purpose of competition, but why competition? Why is competition important from the point of this market law or market economy or this business sense? If you say the competition is important for the purpose of consumer welfare, for the purpose of to expand market, for the purpose to offering their product or services market at larger aspect, and ultimate goal is to welfare of consumer. That means what the objective of law, how to provide the welfare of the consumer, and what is the objective or the competitor, that means the firm who are surviving in market or competing with each other, and the strategies the main objective of that competitor is just to attract the customer, just to spend their market, and for the purpose to spend their market, they may adopt sometimes the fair way and sometimes the strategies which are unfair in terms of many conditions. So that if you see there are competition may adopt or competitor may adopt the fair competition formula or sometimes the unfair competition. So with this we will have discussion with the meaning of fair competition and unfair competition. So you can say there are generally two ways of competition, the fair and unfair. So let's start with the fair competition. What is fair competition and unfair competition? Fair competition is basically which relates to the adoption of fair means by firm, such as producing quality goods, becoming cost efficient, optimizing the use of resources, adopting the best available technology, investing in research and development. That means fair competition is generally the way the adoption or the practice or the performance of the practicing or the persons or the firm or the rivalry where they adopt the fair formula. And by fair means, that means when the surviving or the competing firm adopted the fair means, when what they produce or the services they are providing, actually they are providing the services in terms of quality that are good and on reduced price. That means by becoming cost efficient, they optimizing the good resources, adopting the best practices formula and available technology. They invest in research and development, how to reduce the cost and increase the quality. These are the method or these are the practices which you may say that they are adopting the fair competition way. But again, on the other hand, if they adopted the unfair formula and unfair means, such as if they adopted the price fixing formula, if they adopted with tying, if they adopted the anti-competitive practices, if they are adopting the carteling, if they are adopting the they are involving in bid rigging formula, that means what the practices they are adopting for the purpose to attract the customer or spending their market, that is not the fair means or to innovation or efficiency or increasing efficiency or you can say against the ethical norms, they adopting such type of practices which is a setting between the competitor rather than the fighting to provide the benefit to the customer. That means you can say unfair competition is a competition which relate to the adoption of unfair means like price fixing with rival, setting a price which is lower than cost in order to throw out the competitor from the market and advertising the belittles others product, etc. That is called unfair competition. Yeah, we can see the simple example or simple illustration regarding the fair and competition. Suppose if there is a company, particularly a bakery company, who reduce the price of bread from 50 rupees to 40 rupees. That means to attract the customer or the larger penetration in market, if a bakery firm adopted a formula to reduce the price and the providing the same quality of the bakery by reducing 10 rupees. That means if the Mr. A or the firm A or company A reduce the price of bread from rupees 50 to 40 rupees, and against to this the rivalry firm, that is company B, who is the rival of that company A, respond by improving the quality of these breads and offering a free loaf on every purchase. This is the situation where a company or firm is adopting the fair formula, and this is called the fair competition. That is generally means what happened. If you see again, a company or firm is for the purpose of attracting the customer or spending the market, reduce the bread price from rupees 50 to 40 rupees. So in this toughest struggle, again the second company who is in rivalry of first company adopted a new formula. And what they offered, they actually have not reduced the price from 40 to 40 rupees, but they improved the quality of its bread against the company A. And with this, they are offering a free loaf on every purchase. This is the formula or method or adoption or practices is comes within the meaning of fair competition. And again, see, if you will see the illustration of what is unfair competition. Suppose a company A copies company's B bread's recipe and passes it off on its own. That means unethical. Company A also spread false rumors that company bread is stale and unhealthy. That means in a rivalry situation, when a bread company or bakery offers the bread to the customer on reduced price, and the other company who is not in competition, who is not adopting the good method or ethical way, so that what they are doing, they are actually spreading the rumors about the quality of the company's A bakery rather than improving the quality of its own bread. That means it is not only unethical, but these are the practices adopted by the company B, bakery B, comes within the meaning of unfair competition. So with this, if we see the fair and unfair competitive practices, let's see another example and decide. Mohit was a small businessman manufacturing vegetable oil by the name of Swad. The people in the village started liking the oil as it was a good product from a small price. Again, the big company, a branded company oil, means the company named the Jaika oil, lost its customer to the Swad, that is the new entity, that means the small businessman. The big company started selling their oil at lesser price than the Swad. They did not bother if they suffered temporary losses in profit as long as Swad was completely taken over by Jaika. On other hand, Mohit could not reduce the price, because if the price reduced by him or if he reduced the price any further, he would have suffered to heavy losses. In some times, Jaika took over the Swad and Mohit had to close down his business. Eventually, Jaika oil rates were increased and the villagers had no choice but to buy the costly oil. Do you think this is a fair? Is this a fair? It is ethical? Perhaps not. Of course not. It is neither fair in terms of Mohit or Mohit business, but again it is not fair in the favor of villagers. That means this is like the unfair trade practices, where actually it affect the small businessman like Mohit, and it impresses, that means the negative impact on the economy of the poor person who can't sustain by reduction on price below the manufacturing cost. So that competition is good only but when this is a fair. That means competition is good only as long as it is fair, healthy and within prescribed standard. So that what is fair competition? Fair competition actually a occasion or an event which refers to a marketplace where all businesses have an equal opportunity to succeed based on the merit of their product or services. That means fair competition refers to the legal principle that businesses should compete with each other on a level playing field without engaging in any anti-competitive practices, such as whether it is price fixing, market allocation or monopolization. That means fair competition is basically essential for promoting innovation, efficiency and consumer choice, and for preventing harm to the economy and society as a whole. So that there are also laws to protect the small businessman like Mohit and to promote fair competition in market, so that only competition is not important. Competition is important, of course, but the objective of the competition will be achieved when it is adopted by the fair means and fair and prescribed standard. So that why we are discussing the fair and unfair competition. If we see the meaning of unfair competition, what we have already discussed as an illustration, what happened with the Mohit, that means the Swad has lost and the Jaika, who is a branded company, initially they took with loss, but when they took over the company or take over the company of the Swad, that means the business of Mohit, they again increase the price. And definitely it is like a malified intention and unethical competition, or the way what the practices they have adopted. So that unfair competition refers to the business practices that violate the principle of fair competition, where companies use deceptive, fraudulent or unethical means to gain an advantage over their competition. And sometimes it may include sometimes deceptive practices, misappropriation of trade, the trademark infringement, false advertising and passing off. That means if the competitor, by adopting the unfair means, deceptions as involving the material representation, omission or practice that is likely mislead to consumer. And if a practicing is adopting by, or the practice adopted by the company or firm, which is basically the misappropriation of trade secret, like stealing confidential information from competitor, and it is again unfair competition where the competitor use the infringed trademark, that means using similar logos, name or slogan to confuse the consumer. By this mean, if they try to spend their market or mislead the consumer, this comes against within the meaning of unfair competition. Sometimes they adopted the practices or formula like false advertisement, where they are making false and misleading claims about product and services. Passing off means limitation the competitor products or service to deceive consumer. That means unfair competition is a competition where the competitor adopted the unethical means, the anti-competitive means, the practices which is not ethical in terms of business, which is against the business practices, which is not fair in terms, and they adopted the formula or the way how to cheat the consumer, how to attract the consumer by misleading advertisement, how to spend their market by violation of law. And if any type of the practices what we have discussed with this, they have adopted, this comes within the meaning of unfair competition. If as a history, that means unfair competition is very much different term from unfair trade practices, but unfair trade practices, if we see, this is interrelated, so that to take a you can say the practical aspect and what is happening actually in the market. If you see the Consumer Protection Act, which is the old Consumer Protection Act, that is 1986, the section 21R that define the term unfair trade practice, which reads as unfair trade practice means a trade practice which for the purpose of promoting the sale, use of supply or any goods or for the provision of any service adopt any unfair method or unfair deceptive practices. And clause 47 of section 2 of the Consumer Protection Act 2019. So that if you see the same with the another act, that is MRTP Act 1969, with particularly the section 36A, which was the amended, that means which was adopted later on stage, that means that was not in a original 1961 MRTP Act, that a term that has been used, this unfair trade practice. So what is unfair trade practice? Unfair trade practice means the trade practice which adopts any unfair method or unfair or deceptive methods for purpose of promoting sale or supply any goods or services to the consumer. So it includes the false representation. False representation means what? False representation generally means the practice of making any oral or written statement which includes falsely suggests that goods are a particular standard quality, quantity, grade, composition, style or model. Not only false representation, it also includes the false offer, or sometimes you can say bargaining price, where an advertisement is published in a newspaper or otherwise, whereby goods or services are offered at the bargain price, when in fact there is no intention that the same may offer the price. Free gift, sometimes the firms or the branded or sometimes unbranded, what happened, what you can say, the seller, sometimes they offer the free offer, sometimes they offer the prize scheme. What they are offering, any gift in a form of any kind, prize or other item along with the goods, when the real intention is different. This is the important term. Merely providing the scheme like prize scheme or gift offer is not bad in law. That is not against ethical, this is not unethical. That is obviously, this is like the promoting the business. This may be adopted as a good practice, as a fair competition. But yes, if the offering the prize scheme or free gift offer, any item or kinds good which is indifferent, that means when the real intention is different, that they are not actually willing to give you price, rather they are misleading with this advertisement by offering the free offer, it comes within the meaning of the mala-fide practices or unfair trade practices. So that unfair trade practices can also be considered anti-competitive practices, as they can harm competitor and distort the market. So that competition law authority often investigate and penalize company for unfair trade practice and also continue to any anti-competitive behavior. So what are the legislation? Where are the remedies? Is there any law to protect the customer or consumer for this type of unfair trade practices? Yes, there is another law what we are not dealing with. We are dealing with here the competition law. But what we have already discussed today is in this session, particularly the unfair trade practice, there is a remedy in the Consumer Protection Act. That means there are two key legislation, they are interrelated in some manner, that is Consumer Protection Act and the Competition Act 2002. The Consumer Protection Act basically to protect the consumer for unfair trade practices, and the Competition Act 2002, that is not directly related to the consumer, but yes, by regulating anti-competitive agreements, it also comes within the meaning of to promote the competition and ultimate beneficiary the consumer, so that these two legislation are key legislation to stop this type of offering, that means stop this type of unethical, unfair competition like the untrade or unfair trade practices. If you see the interface, that means while looking at the objective of both law, if we see the objective of both law, it can be said that the aim of Consumer Protection Act is to protect the right of consumer to be assured by access the variety of goods and services at competitive price, whereas the Competition Act assures availability of goods and services at competitive price for consumer. That means it ensures better and new product or services at lower price. So that if we see the cases through the case law, a very famous case law, that is in Ashok, and Ashoka Smokeless Coal Company Private Limited versus Union of India in 2007, the Honorable Supreme Court made an observation that a level playing field is a factor in a new economy in a market ruled by the free economy, where producers establish their own prices. A competitive and choice field market or goods manufacturing can lead to the aforementioned equal playing field, so that the state must prioritize the interest of the consumer if the free market policy is to be realized. So, to achieve this objective, competition law plays a vital role. So that what is actually happening, what we have discussed, the meaning of competition and the ways of competition. You must remember that competition is essential and important. Competition is essential and important for the sake of purpose or for the purpose of to provide the better quality, better product and better services, that means ultimate benefit to the consumer. So, the competition is essential and competition is important. But the important point is only competition is not important until the competition is healthy competition, fair competition and competition in prescribed standard. So, merely competition, there must not be a competition merely, rather than there should be a fair competition. So, in that context, in today's lecture, what we have discussed, the meaning of fair competition and meaning of unfair competition. And again, you must remember that unfair competition are unethical, not only unethical but unlawful, so they are prevented, and by the two key legislation, that is Consumer Act and by the Competition Act, these type of activities which comes within the meaning of unfair trade practices are prohibited, and sometimes there is a penal formula, that means there are the provision to penalize such person. So, with this remark, let's overthink, that means there is a self-assessment test which is related to the unfair and fair competition. This is for you. I am leaving a problem with you just to think over this. And the problem is, Ramesh, a retail store, and Suresh Shopping Mart are two competing department store in a small town. Both store sell similar product and cater to the same base, that means same customer base. Ramesh retail store start a promotional campaign and Ramesh offering 20% discount on all product for a limited period, and the Suresh Shopping Mart responded by offering a similar discount, but also start a social media campaign highlighting the poor quality of Ramesh retail store products. So, if you again see the problem, there are two competitors, where one competitor is offering the discounted price on the goods and services or for limited period, against the rivalry, that means Suresh Shopping Mart offering a similar discount, but that is not offering similar discount. On the other hand, he had adopted one more formula, and that is he also the social media campaign highlighting that the poor quality of his rivalry Ramesh retail store product. So, for you the question is Suresh Shopping Mart's response an example of fair competition and unfair competition? Why and why not? So, I am leaving the question with you for think over this. So, for today's, this is just about the fair and unfair competition, and we will again discuss with another topic, that what is competition law and what is competition law needed. So, in next lecture, we will have the competition law, the requirement of competition law and the justification of competition law. So, with this, thank you for today. Thank you very much.